Welcome to everybody. This is me, Yannick, speaking. At the moment, we are 34 people, which is already great. We had like close to 400 signups, so let's see what's happening. I'm Yannick. I'm the organizer of the Munich chapter of the Harvard Business School online community. So we are a community which is basically for everybody that participated in some kind of Harvard Business School online activity, and they come together and they have chapters all over the world. We are the Munich chapter. We usually have some events coming up. You can keep posted. I think you can register as well if you're not part of the Harvard Business School online community. Me, myself, I'm 28, but I'm not the most important person here. We are here together to talk about circular economy and everything along it. And for that, we have a couple of speakers, and we later on will invite you to have questions for the speakers. And thanks to Federico for bringing us all together. And yeah, so let's get into it. So we have Federica Savini, which did a PhD in physics as well, like me, which is cool. And she is from Cyrkl, and she's the consulting team leader there. She will talk a bit about Cyrkl herself later on, so I won't spoil too much. And we have Niklas Alexander Maus here sitting in Munich, and he just announced that he's the co-founder of Circular Republic of the UnternehmerTUM after being involved in the space and doing his PhD there still, or soon to be finished. And yeah, he will introduce you to that topic. And with that, I hand over to you, Federica, and Niklas Alexander.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Federica, should I start and then hand over to you, I guess, right? Perfect.
Yeah,
and I'll be sharing my screen shortly. Also from my side, good evening, everyone. Very warm welcome. Great pleasure to be here. As Yannick said, my name is Niklas. I'm one of the co-founders of Circular Republic. I'll be getting into what that is later on, but my job in here is to do a bit of a introduction, Circularity 101, what this is all about. Generally, simply given the macroeconomic trends, we all need to always reconfront ourselves, I think, with the fact how incredible resource consumption has developed over the years ever since the Industrial Revolution. Just during the last 50 years, so that is since 1970, global resource consumption has tripled. Global population is also going to be reaching 50 billion within the century. And at the same time, the anthropogenic mass, so the mass produced by human beings on this planet, be it industrial mass or consumer goods or whatever, buildings, has surpassed the entire biomass on this planet in the year 2020. So it's really crazy, actually, where we are, especially given the fact that 50% of greenhouse gas emissions are related to extraction and processing of raw materials. So that is, I think, the framework or the framework conditions we need to keep in mind when talking about circular economy. And the nice thing is that despite all those threats we have right now, planetary boundaries being threatened in many different extents, we also see a true possibility to make a change right now. Circularity is nothing new, I think. It's common sense, actually, being reasonably in the way we deal with resources. Cradle to cradle, it's been called for a couple of years, even though that has a different focus than circularity in general. But still, even though it's common sense, we still haven't really managed to redefine our industries and societies in a way that we actually deal in a sustainable way with resources. So right now we're living in sort of a bubble economy, which is based on this extraction and processing of raw materials, which won't be going on forever. But I think more and more people have understood. Also, the European Union with the Green Deal is really pushing, I think, in the right direction, not only for ecological reasons, but also for economical ones, for matters of supply security and competitiveness, after all. And I think if we manage this right, we will actually be able to safeguard prosperity and innovation, but without depleting the environment at the same time and actually destroying the basis of that very prosperity. So what is a circular economy and what is not? I brought two definitions because there's so many like wandering around generally that maybe makes sense to look at these two. I'm not going to read them out, obviously, but one is a bit more scientific. That is by a guy and some colleagues called Kircher from 2017, and the other is by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who's been a thought leader in the field for many years. And I think what is key is that they both really focus on resetting our industrial system and designing an economic system that simply eliminates waste in the best way. That is utopias. It's obviously not going to happen, but closes material loops and makes sure that the waste that is generated at one point is feed for other systems at another point. And I think that relates very well to actually what Cyrkl, and we'll be hearing about that from Federica later on, is actually implementing in a really great way. And of course, there's also many other things we can do. Basically, we want to extend material loops, we want to close material loops, and we want to narrow material loops. So we want to consume less in the best way. In the best case, we want to have products that last longer. And once the end of life actually comes, which is always going to be coming at some point, we need to make sure that circles are closed. And we need to make sure, that's why I like this graphic on the right, because it's so easy also. We need to make sure that we really close loops and not end up in a pseudo closed situation where we're sort of in a recycling economy that actually doesn't really systemically solve the problem, but actually only postpones it to a later stage. What can we do to make sure that we're in such a circular economy? I also very much like this 9R framework, differentiating between different possibilities, particularly companies can do. This is very much focused on like the technosphere, technical products, where instead of only thinking of recycling, there's a lot to do to accomplish when designing products differently, making sure they last longer, obviously, and that they can be reused or repaired, refurbished, remanufactured at some point, simply to make sure that this, I don't know if you see my cursor, that this landfill actually is a thing, or also incineration in the best case is a thing that simply doesn't exist anymore. And that is in many cases also heavily related to a change in the business model, and that's what we're going to be looking into in a short moment also. Another framework, also simply for you guys to have seen it, also very commonly known, so-called butterfly diagram, which goes beyond this technosphere, which I just mentioned, and also relates to the biosphere, because obviously we don't only have technical products, we also have the whole field of agriculture, food, and so on and so forth. And also there, we need to make sure that we have circularity within technosphere and in the end, a regenerative biosphere at the same time. Why do we want that? Again, that is from the International Resource Panel of the United Nations. I like that graphic also a lot. Basically, we want to reach well-being for everyone. We want to maintain economic activity, progress, also growth. There's a whole debate about degrowth and so on and so forth. That's a different topic, I'd say. But still, we need to manage to decouple that economic activity and that well-being from negative impacts on the environment, and also from the resource use that is so far so heavily related to it. How does that look in practice? I brought 10 industry examples and 10 startup examples. Given the time, I'm not going to like fly into all of them in all too much detail, but related to this whole field of remanufacturing, especially here from our environment in Munich, really interesting is Knorr-Bremse, for instance. They do braking systems for trains and trucks. And what they do is that they take back those braking systems at the end of life and basically refurbish or remanufacture the components in order to create a new braking system out of an old braking system. It's not always so easy because it's also really a matter of safety. But if it works, the great thing is you basically don't need any new virgin materials, but have a new product or a as good as new product that creates the same value actually. And Caterpillar does the same with construction machines, also super successfully in an economic way. SKF, same with bearings, or Hilti has a service and renting model for drilling machines. It's really interesting when thinking of those business models, how also circularity and other business model innovations very nicely come together. There's a quote by Michael Porter he's actually a Harvard professor, funnily, who said, people don't want to, he's like the marketing pope, I think, of Harvard. He always said, people don't want a drilling machine, they want a hole in their wall. And you can apply that to many different other contexts. It's always about really ask yourself what your customer actually wants and needs. And Hilti also saw that, obviously, and they basically manufacture drilling machines, which are really expensive, but after all, their customers want to use them. They don't necessarily want to own them. And given their high quality and price and so on and so forth, it's actually a really nice incentive alignment between customer and manufacturer. If you manage to rent out those machines, that way the manufacturer benefits from the longevity and the quality of its machines. And at the same time, the customer gets a great machine without having to pay as much or having to buy it because he actually doesn't want to own it. Same thing, you could say, customers don't want a laundry, don't want a washing machine, they want clean laundry. And so BSH, Bosch Siemens Hausgeräte, they're and also others in the industry such as Miele, they're piloting projects where they also have a service model actually for washing machines instead of actually selling them, renting them out, again leading to the same situation that such a machine at the end of use, not at the end of life, but at the end of use, can either be relocated to another user, or generally the manufacturer simply benefits from its longevity. And maybe also that would be the next step, the modularity and the design and everything that makes this machine in the best way eternal, updatable. Yeah, that's more or less it. I personally was very much involved actually for nearly a decade here in this case in the middle. Lawrence, it's about smart meters, and there we also had the situation that we had many competitors who were going for low-cost products, low-cost materials, simply because there was much price pressure on the markets. Also the main materials, which are, among others, brass, really skyrocketed in prices in like the early 2000 years. And the question was, how can we remain competitive without actually reducing the material and the quality and so on, and then the material costs of our, or yeah, basically the material and the quality of the product, with at the same time without well, I'll figure it differently. How can we remain competitive and reduce our prices without compromising the quality or the durability? And the idea was also very simple, actually, to take back at the end of life those products and reuse as many components as possible, or at least remanufacture them. And that, again, translated into a massive reduction of material costs, which in the end really works for everyone involved. So it's a great ecological benefit, because you avoid all those pre-processes you'd need and the extraction of new materials. And at the same time, you save a lot of money, which you can then also share in a way with your customer. Many other examples, Trumpf, also in the servitization context, or Vilo, they do pumps and do a lot of recycling, especially with rare earth elements. Bosch is a nice example from the consumer goods industry. And of course, one for us in Munich, really interesting one is this BMW iVision Circular, who translates all those ideas into the automotive context, where it's, of course, again, maybe even more challenging given the consumer role. And at the same time, many interesting startups in the field. I can't really say what my favorite one is. But the nice thing is here that you see the applicability of some of those ideas in so various contexts and industries. Triceless does bioplastics based on agricultural byproducts. Surplus created a marketplace for secondary plastics. Conculator is in the construction industry, digitalizing buildings or building digital twins, and that way making refurbishment or deconstruction of buildings actually feasible, which so far wasn't really. made of air does carbon capture and produces materials from that captured carbon. Resortex has a fiber that dissolves under temperature appliance, and that way enables textile recycling. Cookie has a smart reusable cup system where you can get a coffee to go and then return it in such boxes. Twice to Zero and LipCycle, they're all in the battery value chain. Or Fix First, they do an operating system for actually related to BSA or other cases in the home appliance industry where you can ease in the whole repair process for end consumers. And now, just shortly jumping before I hand over to Federica, what we're doing with Circular Republic, I need to step one step back and maybe also explain what UnternehmerTUM does. UnternehmerTUM, basically a German word for entrepreneurship, and at the same time, Europe's in the meantime a larger center for innovation and entrepreneurship, closely affiliated with the Technical University of Munich, but an own legal entity. And we have basically two streams of activities: entrepreneurship support and innovation with established companies, leading to, in the entrepreneurship field, actually 50 to 70 startups that are being really founded a year, that is scalable startups, not project level, but really scalable incorporated startups. So one a week, which is really great. 10 to 20% of venture capital within Germany are invested in UnternehmerTUM affiliated startups. So it's really a great machinery we're building on, and a great network with excellent players from science and universities, from venture capital, and of course also from industry. And our main goal is to leverage all of that in order to contribute to actually circular startups and circularity also within the industry. And actually, very shortly, we differentiate between enable, act, inspire. In what we're doing, we're basically trying to enable startups, leveraging this whole machinery we anyways already have at UnternehmerTUM. It's 350 to 400 employees meanwhile. And maybe you've seen it before, 6,000 people that some way are related each year to those programs. Leverage this entire machinery, and at the same time also work together with established companies in order to help them transform themselves. Inspire the general public, bring that into the hearts and minds throughout all of Germany and hopefully all of Europe and internationally. And then, which also maybe is the key differentiating factor, really try to not only initiate projects, but really create, in a way like a company builder, scalable and investable circular economy solutions in specific value chains or material streams or industries. And we're right now working with a couple of automobile companies and battery or startups in the battery value chain. We're also setting up activities in the field of textiles, and that way, actually, year by year, we're going to be looking into another sector or industry, hopefully, then always finding or identifying the problems and also finding the solutions that really can help transform those industries, really by means of entrepreneurial action. I'm one of the co-founders, as said, but I'm really happy not to be alone on this journey, but with Matthias and Susanne, who both came from super interesting backgrounds, and many more, of course, also in this whole ecosystem. And now, actually, very much also looking forward to Federica and hopefully later on to working together with Cyrkl and many others. Thank you.
Thank you, Niklas. I'm gonna share my screen now. And let me know if you see it. Yes. Okay, so Federica here, and good evening, everyone. And I'm really happy for this opportunity to present you Cyrkl, which is the largest platform in Europe for industrial waste management and green sourcing. And so before going into details in that, I'd like to give you some more insights on what Niklas already told you about circular economy. And first of all, this is the share of global greenhouse gas emissions by sectors. So we can see here that making things, so all the industry, production processes, and the products we are used to, actually emit for 33% of the GHG emissions, which is a lot compared to other sectors like transport or agriculture, for example. So this is due to the fact that for making things, actually we need a lot of material inputs. That could be from non-metallic minerals, metal ores, fossil fuels, and biomass. So this is the input part. And then obviously this go in different streams, into industries and all the processes, then into stocks, could be like roads, buildings, and so on, but also our households. And then there is a process of waste management. At this point, there are some emissions that we can't avoid. We could do some other things, but let's now focus on materials. And we want to cycle back these materials. And here you can see 4 actions that can be taken on in circular economy. And so this is just a simpler scheme. We have a product design where we should narrow. So it means use less, of course. It means we need to decline the use of virgin materials. Then we have a part of functional use and end of life, of course, and this must be as long as possible. So it means slow down, use longer, use the materials we have for better and for longer. And then here our part to cycle back, use again. So boost the use of secondary raw materials, because as Niklas said, it's not only about recycling, but it's actually to find a market, a second life for the materials we recycle. And then there is also regenerate, so make clean, choose renewable energies and regenerative materials over fossil fuels and toxic materials. So these are the main principles, and the aim is, in the end, in one sentence, keeping materials in use at the highest value possible while decreasing material extraction and use. So, but what is the state of circularity now? So for state of circularity, we mean the share of secondary materials that are cycled back into the economy, starting from waste. So we have the Cyrkl economy, which is an international organization that every year since 2017 measure the global state of circularity, reporting in this circularity gap report. And I'd like to ask you if you know what's the current level. It was a quite recent announcement because the newest report was published last month, and there was a percentage for this amount of material that go back right now into cycles, different processes or industries. So maybe you heard of that, or you can just guess. As you can see, all the different options are all above 20%. So you already know that is not actually a lot. Maybe. Yeah. So we are sharing the result now, and I see that most of you were kind of prepared, because the right answer is 7.2. And yeah. So the current state of circularity is 7.2%. It means that the global economy relies mostly on materials from virgin sources. And the bad news is that in 5 years, this circularity level dropped from 9.1 to 7.2%. So the reason is that we are failing to cycle more. We are increasing virgin extraction, and we are putting more and more materials into stocks. That's because actually on Earth, we are now more than 8 billion people. So we need a lot of resources. And virgin material demand per person is also increased. Compared to the 70s, it was 7 tons per person. Now is 12 tons per person. And this is on average, because of course, there are some differences among all the countries. Also, total material extraction has doubled since 2000. And in the end, if we want to have a single number, we can tell that the global economy consumes 100 billion tons of materials per year, which is really a lot, and is expected to increase to double by 2050, if we do business as usual. But what if we can do for real circular economy? There are some challenges, of course, on resource efficiency. And this is difficult in general to find a proper circular and sustainable manner of doing economy. There are many challenges behind these. Of course, we need to bring innovation into a system that is working based on money, because waste management is also makes other companies to make money. So we need to avoid that, to change the system, to give different options. Then we have the market. We need to understand how the market works in terms also of waste and the secondary raw materials, and give the right price to these materials. Then, of course, we need always to keep in mind that we need to know the global impact of the end of life of products and the carbon footprint and so on, all the impacts behind this. Green sourcing, we need to find the right materials for all the different processes. And of course, we need also to make sure that these sources are coming from truly trustworthy companies. And also cooperation. Implementing circular solutions requires an understanding of local, national, and trade context. And this is true for all the different countries and for all the different legislation at the national level, European level, and global level. So here is where Cyrkl fits in. What is Cyrkl? It is a green tech startup, which means that is has an environmental goal and mission, but is based on a technology. We are working on 12 countries in Europe, starting from our headquarters in Prague, where Cyrkl was born in 2019, then it spread around up to countries like Italy, Spain, and France, and Germany. And we are 70 circular heroes, how we call ourselves, and we work in teams, of course, each one of us in its own country, but we meet from time to time all together to share our experiences and expertise and so on. And also for team building, of course. That's the persons behind the startup. Our mission is to double the global circularity level by 2030. So it's pretty ambitious, but this is what keeps us motivated. And what's the core business? That is a digital platform for industrial symbiosis. So let's see more in detail how it works. And I thought I can just show you our platform. So this is the Cyrkl website, where you can see the homepage. Here we are talking about waste, byproducts, and secondary raw materials. Of course, we have the number of companies that are registered on the platform all around Europe, the offers that are being published, and also the emissions we can save, considering the connection we make between companies in our network. That's the main reason for industrial symbiosis, to know all the companies that are working for these circular economy principles. You can go then onto the marketplace and see here all the different categories, the different materials we have, from plastics to e-waste to glass and organic waste and so on. And you can then scroll all the offers we have, finding waste or with the waste code, byproducts or secondary raw materials. And you can sort all these offers considering location or quantity, the form, and so on, like eBay, for example. And then we have solutions. So this means the projects we are actually working on for more difficult cases. We completed more than 350 projects all around Europe. And these are divided into different categories. Circular waste scans for a complete analysis of all the waste fluxes and streams. Then you can see here also some use cases if you want to look at that on your own later on. Then we have recyclability analysis for cases of products that are more complex and we need to find solutions for different components of the product. Then, of course, green sourcing to find sustainable inputs for different processes, and also circular demolition, which means a pre-audit where we are trying to find solutions for the materials from buildings that are being demolished. And here is how it works, our business and our work in general. So we have a marketplace team and a consulting team. They are kind of working together, and it depends on how difficult the problem is. So a marketplace is dealing with the online platform, and the consulting team for more complex situations where there is like a complete waste scan or green sourcing for more interesting, challenging materials. And we are all trying to find a solution to connect the demand with offers in the end. Here we go from doing in yourself solutions, because like the platform can be used automatically and also on their own, and to strategic solutions which are the projects. And obviously we also have a marketing team and a product development and an IT team, which is really important for the healthiness of our platform. But let's see some use cases. So from the marketplace, we have the case of an offer of Italian uniforms for recycling. And this company wanted to get rid of these uniforms. On the other side, we have Saint-Lazare, a French startup that is working on upcycling materials to create backpacks, wallets, computer bags, belts, and jewels, for example, in an elegant way. And these are some upcycled materials they are dealing with, like fire hoses, bike tubes, seat belts, and so on. And for example, the pouch you can see here, it was made from uniforms. So here the connection. Let's give them these uniforms to make something out of it. And the prototype they are working on is this kind of bag, which will be made from the uniforms they bought on Cyrkl. And the best part is that before this connection, the uniforms were meant to go to landfill. We avoid these now, and they are going back into a new production process. So that's one. Then we have also Lindstrom, which is a manufacturer of protective clothing for workers. And they also produce rubber doormats, and they collect them from the customers at the end of life. They are made from rubber and synthetic fiber, the nitrile. And the problem was to separate these two parts. So we found a recycler who was able to separate the rubber from the nitrile fibers, and to produce with the first a granulate, and with the second just the fibers. So the rubber granulate was used to produce some rubber tiles, and also the granulate. And the fun part here is that the very same company that recycled the material was also using Cyrkl to publish offers of the tiles and the rubber granulates. So here we are really working on the whole value chain, and also was offering the fibers from nitrile for the production of gloves, because are really resistant and preferable in case of allergies. Then from circular solutions, we have the case of a producer of tobacco products in Poland. We carried out a circular waste scan here, and this waste is a post-production waste. So it's not post-consumer, which is also a problem in the case of cigarettes, but even in production processes of cigarettes, there is a large amount of waste. In this case, the main one was cellulose acetate. And from our expertise, we knew that this material could be used in the building sector. So in the end, we found another company working in the building sector that could take this cellulose acetate to make thermal insulation. This would bring to the company 100,000 euros of financial savings. So, I mean, it's also sustainable in terms of finance. Then last case is from demolition audit. This was carried out for Skanska in Czech Republic. And they had this 7-floor building and they wanted to demolish it. So to build a new one, more efficient one. An old building like that contains really a lot of reusable and recyclable materials. So we went there to identify all the possibilities and then collect all the probes, samples, and so on to map all the materials. And then the idea is to find already before the demolition starts the right solutions for the material that can be collected. There was a great potential, and not only for like single products like doors and so on, but also for tubes and metal structures, like some of the images you can see here. And the coolest thing, in my opinion, is that doors and the sanitary accessories could be reused directly. So all of that material went to hospitals and social housing the way it was, which is the best. So no actions must be undertaken for that. And for the others, like ceiling tiles or insulation panels, we found recyclers. In this case, all the materials were not were diverted from landfill. So that's the biggest achievement. And before the demolition starts, Skanska already knew where the materials would go. And I want to conclude this presentation with the manifesto of Cyrkl. And my favorite sentence is number 9, which is about passion and curiosity and honesty. And I think that if you are here, the aperitivo time, listening to this, we share passion and curiosity for environment and for circular economy. So I'd like to thank you, and let's close the loop together with Cyrkl. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you very much for this amazing webinar. We saw a lot of case studies, real life case studies, very interesting, and especially what's more important about education and dissemination of knowledge is the 17th goal of SDGs, that it's exactly what we are doing now. We are trying to cooperate and bring to the attention of the public all these issues. So yeah, I see that there are 2 questions in the group. So yeah, let's start with the Q&A now. I will tell you the first one. So we will start one Nicholas, one Federica, one Nicholas, one Federica, okay? Well, also depending on whether it's about Cyrkl or... Yeah. So the first question from Victor: what have been some of the biggest challenges you faced in your company when undertaking the projects, and how did you overcome these challenges? I think it's about Cyrkl, but I mean, you can both reply with your respective companies. Yeah, you can start, Federica.
Okay, so in my case, the worst thing is to find partners or like purchasers or sellers and so on, that when I reach out to them, they are just saying, we want to do business as usual. Like they are not really willing to try something new, but not even to communicate. So it's like they are closing doors right away. At least this is true for Italy, because I mainly attend focus on Italian events and projects, but we also do some international projects. So in that case, there are like different difficulties. It could be like mainly on waste legislation. So each country starts from a different point in terms of waste management and so on. So in that case, we need to find this, like the work at the same wavelength. And so mainly is either legislation or companies working in the business as usual model. But I feel this is changing, and I can see a different approach in some companies. They are starting to look around for new solutions and so on. But of course, Then there is another problem that we are a startup, we are all young and new on the market. So we are trying to build our brand awareness and trustability from among all the people and institutions. So these are the main challenges for us in Cyrkl.
Yeah, I would also add, yeah, as I'm still I'm also working in Cyrkl. Yeah, apart from what you said of yeah, lack of cooperation for goals, I think it's a very, very big challenge, even when for the ones that accept the circular economy. The big challenge to effectively, yeah, put into practice the circular economy is the fact that transport and storage are very, very hard to arrange. And many times, even if we have two, a buyer and a seller that are disposed to, yeah, one take the waste of another, then the transport and the storage can really change everything. So it make it really inconvenient sometimes, and it's really, really yeah, I think it's the biggest challenge of our company, and still we are doing our best to solve it, but it's on a case by case basis. We still don't have a fixed partner to arrange transport and storage, and that's a big problem. That, yeah, maybe it's a loophole in the market. We hope that a new startup comes up and helps us with this. Who knows? Yeah. So yeah.
Adding on that, maybe Federico, with regard to this whole question of economic competitiveness, I think that is key. After all, in all business models, you'll never be able to build on like philanthropy or intrinsic motivation of anyone involved, which is maybe also fair and understandable if you're honest to yourself. Thing is, take a washing machine. If that breaks down at some point, in the worst case, it's cheaper to buy a completely new machine than to first find a handyman and then get him or her to your place and have your machine fixed. If you have 5 hours of work, then you can easily buy a new machine, and that's a matter of convenience then again, and of course such framework conditions make it really hard. What could change that is stuff like a CO2 price, for instance, a disposal fee, stuff like that. In your case, I guess you compete with what does it cost me, or what does it bring to like simply dispose it at in the easiest way right away. And as you mentioned, if those transport or logistics costs simply surmount the other costs, then of course it gets hard. On the other hand, especially in the manufacturing industry or so, shifting our business model can be super promising, partly also really a no-brainer. But then again, still you need to find customers who are open and innovative enough to understand such a business model, for instance, of leasing instead of buying. And then that sometimes it's not even the price competitiveness, but maybe the complexity of the whole process that makes it harder for someone in procurement to say, okay, I'm going for this, because everyone's always asking for the easiest solution and maybe also the short-term best deal, which doesn't really make sense on a 10-year horizon, but on a 1-year horizon, and that's unfortunately often enough the time frame that people think in. It simply does.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas, for your intervention. So we have another questions. Yeah, would you share your presentations? Yes, I think we can definitely share the presentation. Please send us an email, reach out, and we will share it. Maybe also in some, like, it's possible inside the event itself to post the presentation. I don't know.
We replied that the presentation and even the recording video will be shared with all the participants.
Oh, great.
For those who require it, we can send also the certificate, so if needed. And yeah, there are also some other questions were in the chat, but also in the Q&A.
Yeah, because some people put. I'm going through the chat first, and then the Q&A. Oh, yeah, sure. I saw the reply now. So Swati asked, does Cyrkl have any partner in Asia for circular solution? Well, I can also answer to this. Unfortunately, for now, no. I mean, we are a startup. We just started a few years ago. So for now, we're exploring Europe and the Americas, but that's really, really early. So yeah, hopefully in the future we get them. So then, yeah, I see. There are other questions here. Elisar, do you think financial stability is the biggest factor affecting organization decisions to adopt circularity? I think Nicholas, this is referred to you.
Yes, it's exactly the point that it's financial stability, and I think the complexity of the offering in this combination that makes it so hard. And how do you cope with that? It's also, as you said, Federico, before, it's really a case-by-case thing and heavily depends. But if you generally imagine how much value flows into a product in this whole process chain, from extraction to processing to manufacturing to actually having it finally on a level of the use phase, and then how quickly you destroy all that value by simply letting it get discarded, there is enormous economic potential in safeguarding that. And I said it should be a no-brainer, but the question is how will you manage, or how won't you? In this one case where I was involved in the manufacturing industry, it went really nicely, starting with small pilots where you simply say, okay, we're taking back our products, we're going to offer you more than you would get for like the residual value of the scrap material, and we're going to simply try to capture all that value by ourselves and then remanufacture and reuse the products in new products. And that quickly turned out as a really viable business case, and that way it could scale, but also only under certain conditions where we were able to get also the products back after all. That maybe is another dimension beyond complex. Yeah, maybe it's part of this complexity issue that in many cases it's also really hard. Maybe that's why also actors like Cyrkl are so important, to actually close the loop on a basically operational logistical level, because if you don't manage to get your products back in the case of a closed loop, of course it also doesn't really make sense to take up all those extra costs you need to manufacture a more durable and more sustainable product in comparison to a low-cost single-use device, for instance.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. So yeah, then the next question is referred to Federica. Yeah, it's for Federica. What have been your achievements in reducing carbon footprint? For example, how do you measure?
Yeah. So we have developed our own internal CO2 emission calculation for waste management. That means that every time we carry out a project, or we are successful in a connection on the marketplace, we are able to tell the emission savings. That's because we know the energy mix in a specific country. We know what we estimate like the landfill and recycling and so on, what emission they provide, and then we can calculate the savings. So the amount of CO2 emission savings you can find on the website is the total amount generated from the connections happened in the marketplace. And if you go in the use cases in the projects, in the Circular Solutions website, then there you can find project by project the amount of tons in CO2 tons that have been saved. We don't do that for green sourcing because it's hard to tell like the savings from what was happening before, because we don't know exactly the traceability of the material that was used before. But for waste cans and so on, we definitely do that, trying to compute our own carbon footprint.
Just maybe one quick addition from me. How is it with transport of the deal? Do you count that in the total balance, or is that then another?
Yeah, we do. We try to estimate that as well. Yeah. And oh, there are also some other questions, I think, for Cyrkl. Yeah.
Wait. So we have, yeah, Carvo Prugmi. Here we have a more complex question by Patrick. So it's one of the challenges in integrating waste flows as ongoing feedstock for manufacturing is consistency and reliability. For Cyrkl, do you find that your engagements begin as one of the time opportunities to divert material, then hopefully grow into a symbiotic partnership between waste provider and waste receiver? If yes, can you share an example?
Yeah, maybe I'm too tired, but okay. What I can say is that so we are trying to build a network. Of course, a connection could be one time, like a spot connection. That happens one on the website and that's it. That's one scenario. Or another scenario is that it happens one time on the website because these two companies now get to know each other, and everything else happens outside Cyrkl. That is also an option, right? Like they once the contact is created, then they can do and work on their own. So we lose track of what's happening afterward. But if we are good enough, then we make our platform work so well that it is better to work with that than without. And also in case of project, of course, that's something that we are able to keep a track, and we try always to follow up on the project to see if all the solutions were implemented and the benefit that were generated afterward and so on. So we always make sure to follow up with companies if they found they are satisfied with the solution we provided. And yeah, there are some other questions in the Q&A. That's true. Maybe we see that. So again, for Cyrkl, do you think it's possible to adopt the German model, the Pfandgeld of recycling plastic, glass bottles, and so on in Italy and other European countries, and if that's a good practice? So I lived in Hamburg for 3 years, and for the PhD, and I love the fund system they have. It's under discussion also in Italy. And I personally think that is a really good practice, because we can't really avoid at all plastics, or we have bioplastics as well, and also zero waste is not possible. That's not real, and we definitely need some good practices like this to make the consumers aware, to make him like be part of this. Otherwise they are just suffering some new activities to do, but they need to feel involved in this, and that's really important for the future generation as well. And how do we find the perfect purchaser for a seller? That's a good question, because we have so like our platform is based on algorithm, and those are machine learning algorithm. Like that means that every time a company registers, they can choose like their interest in materials, buying, selling, and so on. So we have like a matchmaking algorithm that is able to connect the purchasers with the sellers. So they receive notifications and so on, and in the platform they can talk with the companies that made the offer and like that. So this is our idea. The business model is that this platform will be automated. So like the perfect matchmaking is generated by the platform itself. To be able to reach this, it means that we need to grow in all the countries we are in, and to bring more and more companies to use the platform, because like in every kind of market, you need a lot of offers, and then you find what you're looking for. That's the idea. But for now, it's like partially like that, because yeah, we are growing, of course, but sometimes we need to do our own researches. Like this is what I do in Cyrkl, researching solutions, the perfect purchasers, the perfect sellers, and so on. And then the idea is that at some point they are using the platform on their own. And there is also a question for Niklas. How big is the role of the government to help companies like Circular Republic scale?
Yeah, thanks. I think the main role of the governments would be to setting the right framework conditions that create that economic viability. As discussed before, disposal fees, taxes, and so on, a CO2 price, all such things would shift the whole competition toward solutions such as Cyrkl, or toward manufacturers who produce more sustainable products. That, unfortunately, is really complex. What would be a quick win and really super easily implementable would simply, if we would shift our public procurement in the different countries toward thinking circular, because actually that would be also economically beneficial. If you think of public buildings, railroads, whatever, the state is basically this biggest single client in any economy, and if that economic actor would think in a circular way and embed that also in their own contracts, then we would have a beachhead market for such products and services to scale much more. I think that would be really the best first step. And then, interestingly, regarding this deposit thing, actually, it's sort of an economic incentive, but at the same time, it's actually forming habits, because one would think, okay, yes, there's a deposit, I'll bring it back to the supermarket. But after all, like on a glass bottle in Germany, it's 8 cents. On a plastic bottle, okay, it's 25. If you think about it rationally, it doesn't make any, I mean, it, of course, it makes sense sustainably, but it doesn't make any sense to say, okay, I'm going to carry this all back to the supermarket because I get whatever 40 cents when I give back a couple of bottles. But sort of it's a habit, and it shows people, or it sort of embeds it in their minds that there's a value still captured within such bottles that you don't simply waste. And I think that is really interesting, and maybe that can be scaled. At the same time, we have a second thing. It's called dual system. I don't know if that actually exists in many other countries, for instance, for plastics, where the companies that produce plastics are forced to pay or to ensure that there is a system to recycle them. If that is functioning perfectly is a different question, but at least they need to, the one who produces a good needs to pay upfront for also the end of life. And that would be interesting to transfer that to textiles, for instance, to whatever electronics. And that way you'd also I think already have nice benefits, actually.
Right. Well, before ending this, I think I missed a question on how do you measure circularity, which is a really good question. So in the case of, the level I showed you before from the circularity gap report, you can find on the website their methodology, which is quite complex also because it's global, and there they have like a whole PDF you can download if you are really curious to see all the data sets that they used from trustable sources like organizations or other main data sets. But what we do in Cyrkl is kind of the same. Like we consider, this input-output matrix. In our case, is the demand and offer we have. We know which one are connected and we know which one are not. So basically, we can tell like the percentage of material that can go back into other processes through Cyrkl. So this is our way, like a simplified way to understand how circular we are. The mission refers to the global level, because our idea is to scale our model globally at some point. For now, we are on 12 countries, so we are slowly, but not that slowly, actually growing. I think we replied to all of the questions.
Yes.
Probably. Okay.
Yeah, just one thing, like because here's an anonymous attendee asked for the participation certificate. Yes, it's possible, as you can see in the answer here. Yeah, if you request it, we will communicate it via email. So yeah, that's it. Well,
okay, cool. I think that was a fabulous talk or a fabulous discussion between all of us. And thank you very much for the session. I'm looking forward. We might have other ones upcoming, but maybe not.
I'm really looking
figure it
forward
out.
to it. Yeah, no, I'm sure there will. There will. Just stay tuned, guys. And yeah, whichever questions, just connect with us on LinkedIn. Reach out, follow our pages. We have them all on the webinar. Just ask if you don't find them, and you can find everything. You know.
No worries.
Yes, cool. Then have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you very much.
See you next time.
Bye bye.
See you. Thanks.
Bye.
Enjoy your evening. Bye bye.